Okay, so with us today we have Nik Jones. We're going to talk with you today about your career journey, what you do, how you got there, successes, barriers. As you know, we work with young people between the ages of 16 and 24 years old that are just trying to define their career paths, look for jobs. And so we want to interview lots of people in many different fields just to get an idea and to show them different career pathways they could take and different career fields that they could enter.
Okay.
So if you want to just go ahead and start off by introducing yourself, your name, and what it is that you do.
Hey everyone, I'm Nik Jones. I'm a brewery worker at Molson Coors. Yeah, I make beer for a living.
Sounds like a fun job.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
For 21 years.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time.
For 21 years I've been doing it.
So do you have a favorite brand of beer?
Are you supposed to say who you work for?
Not Miller Lite.
Oh.
Yeah, Miller Lite. Yeah, over the years since I've gotten, older, I like light beers now instead of heavy beers.
Mm-hmm.
But I like craft beers as well.
Okay.
So what exactly do you do at the brewery?
So I work in the brewing department and fermenting. So it's like yeast management.
Mm-hmm.
So when the wort is coming over from the brew house, we do the yeast process where the aging, if you want to call that. It takes about seven days for the process for the yeast, and then we ship it over to finishing.
So you've been there 21 years. I didn't know you were there that long. So why did you? What led you there?
So I moved to. I'm originally from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I moved to Milwaukee in '98. I got the job at Miller. At the time, it was called Miller, and it went through like several different name changes. But my dad had a friend named Joe Tucker, who owned a temporary service here in Milwaukee. It was called Victory Personnel, and he was right up the street on Sherman and Fond du Lac.
Oh, okay.
He was on the corner there. He had an office there, and he also had an office on Water Street. And he also helped me get the job there as a temporary worker. Started out in the mailroom in the corporate office for 4 years. They told me that the brewery was hiring for brewery workers, so I applied to be a brewery worker.
And so you started off in the mailroom, and you
started out in the mailroom, got laid off there, and then took the position down in the plant.
Okay.
Did you know anything about making beer before starting there?
I did not. I didn't have like any warehouse experience growing up in Michigan. I always had like, odd jobs working at Foot Locker or working at Sears. Miller supplied all the skills for me, so I didn't have like any forklift experience. They taught you how to drive forklifts, and they actually gave me most of my skills that I have today.
So to have the title that you have now, which is brewery worker, is that the official title? Okay. What did you need? Like high school diploma, certification?
So I needed a high school degree. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so once you got into the job, in order to like officially start the job, did you have to go through a series of training, or did they train you on the job?
Starting out with the orientation, you had to like learn how to get your certificate for forklifts, confined space, and stuff like that. I had to deal with like hazardous waste. So they supplied you like with all the skills, and over time, you just learned the job.
Okay.
So certain jobs over there in my department, it takes like up to 8 weeks.
Okay.
Just to get the basics,
Yeah.
Then over time and years of experience, you learn like the little things.
Is there like
So, like
more? I'm sorry, I have a lot of questions.
That's okay.
Is there like certain, like everybody in your department, like a brewery worker, is there one that specializes in this, and then another one has this certification?
So no, like
this,
with the jobs and everything, everybody's pretty much the same. We just rotate jobs. And
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like when the warden's coming sure that the temperature, the air, oxygen, the flow and everything is right
Okay.
for the product.
Okay.
What has kept you there for 21 years?
It was a fun place to work for at first when Philip Morris owned us. It was a big party company, like, and they gave out a lot of, tickets or,
Free sample.
yeah, free stuff. Yeah, we do get 3 free cases of beer a month. But no, it was a fun place to work for in the beginning. Now it's kind of like, it's still a good place to work for, good company. The pay is good. The benefits are good still too, so yeah. And like I said, I got only a high school degree, only with a certain amount of skills. And right now, at 42 years old, I'm still trying to build my skills up and I feel stagnant at the time right now, so I kind of want to do something right now, like go to school to better myself.
Okay. Would you do something in that you could stay there still and use that education there?
Yep.
Okay.
So they do offer tuition reimbursement, so you can take advantage of like trying to go to school to get your trades, become an electrician, a machinist.
Okay. Okay.
Or just even work in the corporate office.
Okay.
So since you've been there, well, from when you started, what has changed about the beer making process? Is it the machinery? Is it quicker? I'm sure it's probably quicker at this point.
Yeah. So now we're like a big microbrewery. We do a lot more brands now compared to when I first started. At first, it was just the basic beer that we were making. Now it's getting more like hands-on, dumping the hops. Since it was a large amount of volume of beer that we were making, it was kind of just easy to run. Now, you got all these extra grains you got to put in, and they have put in new equipment, so the pipes and stuff. I don't really deal with too much machines. It's more like computer work and hooking up hoses to tanks. And so like the process is a little different compared to when I first started.
In regards to what you said about growing out of the company, have you ever seen a worker start their own personal brewery or start to brew their own beer?
Yeah, so a lot of the guys who I work with, they do have their own microbrewery that they started at home, and they just do it as a hobby, not really nothing to make a profit. But I have brought it up to the guys, like, maybe we need to start our own brewery.
Right, got all the skill and talent there to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
So could you just explain for me that don't know what a microbrewery is? Like, what does that mean?
Microbrewery is like kind of a smaller scale brewing. Smaller tanks, smaller vessels, smaller volume of beer, more hands-on. Like, for example, like what we're doing with a larger brewery is, it takes like maybe 10 hours to fill a tank. Compared to a microbrewery, it'll take less time to do it. It's just microbreweries are smaller.
Yeah. Okay.
Compared to larger breweries.
Of the products that you all make, what's the most complicated one? I know you all touch a lot of different types of brands.
Yeah.
What's the brand that's like a little bit more hands-on that you're like, you see it and you like, all right.
It's the J.O., which is the Blue Moon brand. It's a thicker yeast. It's a nastier yeast. It expands more compared to our regular Miller yeast that we deal with. It clogs our coolers at times because, with the extra grain that they're putting in there.
Okay.
So it's the Blue Moon brand.
You said that everybody, like, you kind of rotate different jobs that you do throughout there. What are the different jobs, and then what is your favorite and least favorite?
So I've been getting stuck on the position of the cooler job, which is when the wort is coming over from the brewery. We have like 2 coolers that the wort comes through. So you have the north house, you have the south house. With that job, you're watching temperatures, you're watching flow, and your oxygen and pressure and everything on that job. So it's kind of laid back a little bit. You're just watching your computer screens and make sure everything is not in the red.
Okay.
And you're also doing your hookups, working on the cooler side. Then in the same area, you have the yeast room operator, which he's reusing the generations of yeast to reuse it to pitch it into the wort. So we use probably up to like 13 generations of reusing the yeast.
Okay.
The 0 generation, that's the original recipe from Frederick Miller, who started the company. So these people are in charge. That's also another position. These people are in charge. Normally it's one person of the original recipe of that beer. So that's like the baby yeast, first starting out, and then next time you reuse it is, 1, 2, 3. So you're reusing it quite a bit. Then there's another job called Fossing. These are German names that they use. That's like the pumper, which they're in charge of the final product moving over to finishing, which is the finished product, which goes over to packaging, where it gets packaged in bottles and cans and shipping.
Okay.
Which the trailers come pick up the pallets of beer and take them to the distributors.
Then another question. So if after, like for instance, you go through like the 13th generation of the yeast, what happens on that 13th run at the end? What do y'all do with that old yeast?
So we used to put it in a spent yeast tank, and trucks would come and pay us to use it. Like other companies, like Cargill, will use it to feed their cows the grain and stuff, and they actually use it in Campbell's soup as well. So yeah, once it gets high in the generations, we just dump it. Now we pay somebody to come get it, because none of those companies, I think, really uses it anymore. So yeah.
As a beer beginner, could you explain to me what the difference is between craft and light? I heard you mention that earlier, but I'm not sure what.
Craft and light?
Yeah, so I heard you mention one beer was like light, and then craft was like.
Well, you have your ales, you have your lager beer, and some of those beers require more like grain, more product in it, where the other one is like mostly diluent, lighter beer. You still have your grains in it, but it's still, it's light compared to the ones that require more heavier beer. Is a craft like beer.
So how many people work in your particular brewery?
So hearing from the old timers, back in the day, they used to have like 30 people. Now, since a lot of things were automated, it's down to 5.
Wow.
So yeah, it's down to like.
Is that per shift, or is that?
No, that's per shift. So
Okay.
like fermenting doesn't require a lot of people in that
Okay.
area. So it's like 5 jobs, maybe 5 people on the off shifts and 6 on the other, because you have your guy who does the culture, which is the original recipe. So they have more people on first shift.
Okay. So I was gonna ask, do you feel like do you work a lot overtime, or kind of being pulled in a lot of directions? Right now it's kind of a shortage of workers in a lot of different areas and fields. Is that for you guys too?
Yes, it is. It is. It's hard to keep people. They're doing some hiring process right now. They're kind of behind the eight ball behind that, and so a lot of times it is a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
There for people if they want it.
Yeah.
Did last year's pandemic or COVID affect the business heavily?
It did. Yeah, it did. We also had that incident up there last year too,
Right
with the
before everything shut down.
discrimination shooting.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, it has affected it. A lot more people are drinking now. You know, they're stuck in the house. So yeah, the volume of beer has went up, and it was a lot of overtime last year because we were considered essential workers. So.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because like you look at a lot of businesses and they've been affected negatively by that, but there's businesses in like alcohol industry and beer making that have really blown up during this time.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, with that incident happening, with people catching COVID and everything at the job, and just the way things are being handled. People are out, so it's a lot of overtime.
Mm-hmm. We've asked so many technical questions, but what we serve young people are looking for jobs all the time, and we want to tell them like what are specific characteristics you could identify that are needed for this job. So like someone got to be on task, got to be detail oriented. I mean, what are some things that you think really could make someone successful in your role?
Timeliness, being organized, communication is a big one. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I guess.
And when you're saying like communication, in what aspect do you mean? Because I guess I wouldn't think that would be a key
communication
skill.
is big. For example, passing the job off or whoever you're working with in the box, you have to communicate, let them know, hey, we have this brand coming up next. You need to have the yeast ready to pitch into that wort that's coming up. So yeah, communication is big. And I know when I first moved here, my dad was trying to encourage me to take communication classes in college, and I did, and that was probably the last time I probably went to college. So I took a college class. But I plan on going back and trying to get my degree.
What do you want to go for?
Right now it's just the basics,
Okay.
because I've been out of school for so long.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I went to Wisconsin Literacy and took some math courses just to sharpen up on my math skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the work environment like? So is it noisy? Is it smelly?
You have your smells, and you have your noise, the banging of the pipes. Since it's such an old brewery from the 1800s, it's a unique brewery, one of the oldest breweries there in the United States. But yeah, you definitely do have your yeast smells, and some days it might smell like Fruit Loops, other days it might smell like a stable. But yeah, you definitely, yeah.
Okay. And I know that you're part of the union.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit and
So,
how you got involved and then what you're doing now with the union?
Yeah, the unions are big, and they help out a lot, with the workers. I didn't volunteer a lot of times for these positions. I'm a recording secretary for Local 9, the brewery workers, UAW. People volunteer me or put me into these positions somehow, and I figured I need to step up. I've been there long enough and be more active in the union. I had this role it's been 4 years now since I've been recording secretary. It's important to get involved in union jobs, and just being active. The union do a lot for the employees.
Do you have to be in a union there? I know some jobs you can
No, with the
choose.
state laws and everything, now you can opt out of the union if you choose to, and you still have to represent them.
Yeah. So they can
Even though
choose to
they
not be in
do.
the union. You still, as a union, have to represent
You
them.
do, but
Really?
to a certain degree.
Okay.
It has its limits. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you do.
So as a recording secretary, what do you?
So we have our steward meetings every last week of the month on Tuesdays, where all the stewards come there and we talk about what's going on in the plant and what the company is doing and what they're looking at, how we can better the union hall, and just better the union workers. And then every first of the month on Thursdays, we have the executive board meetings where you have all your like your contract committee there, contract committee, and just people on the union board, like kind of higher up than just regular stewards.
Okay.
And we just talk about, like, if they're trying to fire somebody or grieve something, if it's even worth even going to the next step with it. But yeah, and the union does a lot for the workers.
Have you? Well, I know the law changed. What? Gosh, was that 10 years ago that the law changed with the option, right?
Yeah.
To be in the union.
Yeah.
So you've been in the union.
I've been in that.
the
I've been in the
right?
OPIU union. It's been 2 different unions I've been in so far.
Okay.
So working in the mailroom in the corporate office, I was part of the OPIU,
Okay.
which was part of like the secretaries and stuff like that, and some of the laborers as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Along this journey that you've had to get to where you are right now, is there any barriers that you had to face?
Racism.
I was
At the
gonna
workplace.
ask about, like, do you even see people of color in breweries and?
No.
Okay.
So for the longest in that area, I was the only person of color in all 3 shifts, and most of those guys had left or retired. But yeah, it was nights where I had to pray going in there that I would not hurt anyone, because just the way they talk to you,
Yep.
So that was a struggle.
What kept you there then? I mean, despite that.
Just the fact that they weren't gonna be pushing me out,
Mm-hmm.
and ain't that many of us over there in brewing to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one area where I did have to leave. It was so bad. There was a lot more people over there in that area, so it was a lot more drama compared to where I'm at now. It's less people, and you still had some good people over there too, but you still had like a few that just, made it hard for you.
Did it ever prevent you from being able to perform your job? Do you feel like were you able to kind of overcome that?
Yeah, it was one time where I was being trained, and this guy, I didn't know if he was, he's played around a lot. I didn't know if he was serious or if he was playing, and he was just trying to make me feel like I was dumb and like I wasn't getting it. And I just went up to management and told him I can't be trained by this guy. He's talking to me all, crazy. And so they ended up eventually I ended up learning the job from somebody else.
Okay. So they were, in that instance, supportive of your request?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I guess, like, what have they done in order to create a welcoming culture, if any?
Yeah, I guess they're trying. They're trying, but it's still there. Systematic. Still there.
I've seen that I know a lot of companies are doing that, diversity and equity, inclusion. I
Culture,
I was looking up
groups.
Miller before you came, or Molson Coors, and I know they have that position. I don't know if it's filled or.
I know they have a hotline that you can call if you have any complaints or if somebody being discriminated on or whatever. But they're trying to change the culture up at Molson Coors.
Okay. What would you say has been your biggest success?
Just overcoming that
Yeah.
within itself.
Yeah. Definitely see that. And that's important to know because again, we serve a lot of young people, a lot of young people of color who have to go through the same exact thing in the workforce or in their personal lives too. And it's sometimes they're just quit and I don't want to do it. And understandably so, some people can't handle the pressure, right? But knowing that you were able to overcome it and now say that's been your success too is important, I think, for them to hear too.
Yeah, and I didn't grow up. I grew up with, European friends and just different people, and I really didn't have no issues with that really growing up until I did start working at Miller and experiencing that.
Yeah, I interrupted. Were you going to say something? Were you going to ask? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to ask, is there anything you would do differently within the last 20 years since being there? Or at what point would you do something differently after 5, 10 years, 15?
Yeah, so I wish I would have took advantage more of taking college courses so I could have got that skilled trade and been able to move around or even think about starting my own business or whatever.
Are there any trades that could be used within the brewery? Or
there is, yeah. So we have our own electricians, our own
plumbers, probably?
fitters, yeah, our own steam fitters, machinists, yeah. So we do have our own. We used to have our own painters. We had our own carpenters at one point.
But they don't have it anymore, those?
No, they eliminated
okay.
those jobs.
Oh, okay. That's too bad.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I heard that a lot of individuals make their own little microbrew. Do you have a particular that you're like, I'm proud of this particular thing that you've made in the last couple of years?
I don't own my own little microbrewery or at home brewery.
Okay, you don't gotta own that.
Yeah, I don't have the home brewery. I thought about it, but I haven't had time because that takes a lot of time to do. But yeah, I haven't started my own. I've talked about it quite a bit, and I kind of read up on some of the stuff. But yeah, the reason why Miller is so successful because there is a recipe, there is a plan that they did throughout the course of the years that they keep doing it, the same type of practice. So that's what makes bigger breweries more successful.
This makes me think of, is there a secret recipe that you have to swear by that you cannot tell anyone of what
yeah, part of
this
that
is,
culture job that's in our department, that's the heartbeat of our company, and that is the original recipe. And only a few people know it, and
are you one of those people?
no, I'm not one of those.
I was going to say, you one of those?
No, I'm not one. I want to learn it. I wanted to learn it at one point, but I don't know. I guess I didn't get volunteered for it. So.
Voluntold.
Right.
Like the union stuff, right?
So I gotta ask, how do they safe keep it within the company? Do y'all pass on secret messages to each other, or y'all put this in there?
Yeah. Well, no, that culture guy, he worked close with us, making sure everything on our end is right before he starts, and or he pitches or steals from the work and everything. So we work really close with the culture guy, but he doesn't tell us secrets.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
That's all good now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah.
We're excited to share all this information with our young people. We actually had someone who might be interested actually in this field and the union, so we're excited to be able to share that information, and maybe something can work out. We're even maybe making a connection and just having a conversation
Yeah, the main
with you
thing
too.
for these young people, just don't give up.
Yeah.
You can accomplish your dreams. You're gonna go through trials and tribulations and everything like that. Just have a plan. Stick to that plan. You'll be all right. You'll be successful in whatever you put your mind to.
Good words of advice. Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
Appreciate you coming.
Appreciate it.